Welcome back. A recap of our top story. Singapore's Economic Strategy Review Committee has unveiled a plan to create good jobs and achieving GDP growth of 2 to 3% over the next decade. And now for more analysis, we're joined by Rajiv Biswas, who is the CEO of Asia Pacific Economics. Rajiv, great to have you with us. Now, some might say that Singapore has been on track to roll out the ESR's 7 recommendations in some way or other over the last few years. Now, how do you think these recommendations differ from what we're already doing?
Well, I think what we've seen in the last 5 years is tremendous technological disruption taking place with digital transformation, of course, the AI boom that's taking place at the moment, and industrial automation. These are some of the very dramatic technological changes that have disrupted global industry in the past 5 to 7 years and are still creating tremendous change at a rapid pace. So I think this latest review of the economic strategy is to ensure that the settings of the strategic positioning of Singapore are in the best possible shape in order to make sure that Singapore can achieve the 2 to 3% growth target over the medium to long term. And so I think some of the key recommendations that have been indicated in this latest review highlight the importance of some key areas. One, of course, is AI, to ensure that Singapore is a global leader in AI, particularly in AI innovation, and as a center of excellence for multinationals to adapt AI into their business processes. But also the review highlighted the importance of internationalization of Singapore companies. And I think that's a very important message and strategy, because much of Singapore's tremendous achievements in the last 50 years or so have been helped by international firms, multinationals from other countries, headquartering for the APAC region in Singapore or investing heavily in manufacturing in Singapore. But I think at this point, it's also an opportunity for Singapore-based companies that have evolved, and Singapore-grown, homegrown companies, to also spread their wings and move abroad in the sense of building more locations around the world. As we've seen other Asian giants doing, so we've seen Japanese companies for decades.
Now, if we also look at Rajiv, now speaking of that growth as well, if we look at the projected 2 to 3% annual GDP goal that's been set over the next decade, do you think this is still a realistic target? Especially given the frequent external shocks and what you were just mentioning as well, all the technological changes that are still happening?
Well, I think if we look back at just the last 2 years, in 2025, Singapore grew at a pace of 4.8%, and in 2024 grew at 4.4%. So we have seen that Singapore is still a very dynamic economy and is able to grow at a pretty rapid pace, indeed well above that 2 to 3% range. But the key issue is whether over the medium to longer term that can be sustained. And that is why I think this economic strategy review will be, looking at some of the key ways that the economy can adapt. And some of those areas are to continue to be a global leader in some of the key areas of strength that Singapore already has, such as the electronic sector, healthcare, and areas such as aerospace, but also to ensure that Singapore is well positioned to be a leader in new emerging technologies, such as quantum computing, and obviously AI at the heart of a lot of these changes. So I think to make sure that Singapore remains dynamic, and also that Singapore is a very strong hub for startups that can the leaders in the tech space to grow very rapidly in areas such as fintech or AI-related startups. And that can create, very high value jobs and a lot of value added for the Singapore economy. So I think it's a range of strategies that will help Singapore to adapt. And of course, AI adoption boosts productivity, which is fundamental to strengthening growth. So I think all of these things will help Singapore to target that 2 to 3% range. But of course, there's headwinds. And, one of the big headwinds for Singapore is aging demographics, as is faced in other countries such as Japan and Korea. That is a challenge for Singapore. So I think there will be a lot of headwinds that will need to be overcome. In the
now, Rajiv, thank
decade
you so
ahead.
much for
So
sharing your
these are
insights with us. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this interview, but that was Rajiv Biswas, who is CEO of Asia Pacific Economics.